Hey folks, we're picking up with the part 3 video to chapter 7 on psychedelia. We're in the midst of talking about the Beatles and one of their creative contributions from the album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The last song on this album is called A Day in the Life. And it is going to use a formal structure that is a bit more complicated than average, but is still within the realm of normal expectations. But there are some interesting backstories that kind of lead us to this complicated compound ABA form. The ABA basically means that we have a A section at the beginning, we have a B section with something contrasting in the middle, and then we come back again to the A at the end. And the A section in this piece is going to feature a song that has John Lennon singing the lead vocals. In the middle, the B section is going to be a contrasting tempo, a contrasting style, new instruments. It's almost like a completely new song in this B section. And this is Paul McCartney singing a more up-tempo, worrisome, gotta get my day going kind of a song. Woke up, got out of bed, dragged a comb across my head. Meanwhile, that anxious, high-tempo paced B section is contrasted, bookended by John Lennon singing much more introspectively, existentially about wonderings of the universe, wonderings of why do we do the things we do? You can read into the lyrics how you will, but it's definitely of a psychedelic nature. They later confided that there was actually two songs they were separately working on, a song by Paul and a song by John, and they ended up fusing them together to create A Day in the Life. So that's an interesting backstory to how we got to this compound ABA form. But in addition to that, they do some interesting studio techniques. First of all, they literally hired an entire orchestra, and they asked the orchestra members, some of them, to start at your highest note and play slowly chromatically down until you get to your lowest note. And then they asked the other half of the orchestra at the same time, play on your lowest note and go simultaneously while the other half of the orchestra is going down. You go up to your highest note, and let's do that at the same time and just see what it sounds like. They recorded this, and it created this weird, cool, glissando, crescendo, decrescendoing thing that is featured twice as kind of a transition from the A section into the B section. And most interestingly is, not a lot of bands could hire a full symphonic orchestra, that they're able to take that sound and then include it in a rock song, a very psychedelic idea. But one of the other interesting ideas is at the end of this song, you'll hear this long, ringing piano chord, and it just kind of hits with an accent, and you can time it. That one piano chord just goes and goes. It goes for over a minute, and it just decays, but so slowly. And the way they made that happen was they actually recorded the sound of just a crashing piano. At one point, I think they were rumored to have suggested, let's record the sound of pushing a piano out of a window, but they didn't actually do that. It's literally just a pounding on the piano. But they recorded that sound, and then they looped it, and then they delayed it and stretched it out to create this one sound that would, in real life, would decay within about 10 to 20 seconds. But then they took that sound and they just delayed the decay. They kept stretching it out. And then if you make it to the very end of that, then you get to a point where I wish we were face-to-face having this conversation, because when I play A Day in the Life and we get to the very end of that decaying piano crash chord, when it finally subsides, there is this loud noise that I can no longer hear. I have a memory of being your age, or a teenager or someone in college. I have a memory of being a younger person and hearing the note that cues, now we're into the even weirder part of Sgt. Pepper's. But now it is, it's a note I can no longer hear. And one of my favorite things in this class is playing this song for you folks and then watching your faces when this high-pitched, incredibly high frequency is heard on the recording, and the young folks who still have ears that are intact hear it and flinch, and old fogies like me are just like, what just happened? I see a response on your faces. And then you'll hear a lot of the Beatles kind of like skiffle-esque sense of humor where they're just kind of goofing around, and you'll hear words that you don't understand because it is words that are played in reverse. But it's rumored that if you played them, if this was on a record and you could rotate the record the other way around, it would say things like Paul is dead, Paul is dead, but it will sound much more gibberishy than that when you listen to it in the normal playback. Anyway, these are strange, unusual, psychedelic things that the Beatles are doing in their formal structure, in the timbres they bring in with orchestra instruments and the things they ask the orchestra to do, in the way they fuse these two different songs together into one song, in the way they stretch the piano chord out, and especially in the way they do these hijinks at the end with high, strange, shrill sounds that only certain people can hear, and then messages played backwards. Again, it's a longer song than average, but it's worth listening to really kind of compare and contrast two of the leading psychedelic bands of the late 60s. The Beach Boys with their song Good Vibrations, which also plays around with strange timbres and strange formal structures, and the Beatles, A Day in the Life, which plays around with strange timbres and strange structures.